Really, Board of Selectmen, Mr. Moderator, may I ask you a question? This is the first time I've heard you say that you may or may not follow the names on the list in the order in which you received them. What other criteria do you use to determine who may speak on an article?
If someone raises their hand every single time, I'm going to hear from someone else.
Oh, well, then God bless you. That's all right.
Okay, Article 7. Got you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Carol Kowalski, Director of Planning and Community Development. Town meeting members, I'd like to ask you to bear in mind 5 main points as you consider Article 7. Right now in our zoning bylaw, land zoned for business can be converted to residential use by right if it's for a single-family home or a duplex, or by special permit if it's residential use of higher density. The second point I'd like you to bear in mind is that mixed use, the combination of residential and business use in the same building, currently exists in Arlington, but it's almost impossible to do today. A third point I'd like you to bear in mind is that only about 4% of our tax base is business-based right now. The warrant article and the amendment that's proposed would create incentives only for developments where business and residential use are mixed in the same building. These incentives would not be available to business only, and they would not be available to residential only developments. And the fifth point I'd like you to bear in mind is that these incentives would be subject to a special permit and the environmental design review standards currently in the zoning bylaw. I'm going to get the clicker, excuse me. There are many examples of mixed use in Arlington where upper floors have a residential use and lower floors have a business use. You see it in Arlington Heights. You see it in Arlington Center. Here's Wood and Strings. These are all the B3 Village Business District zone. And you see it in East Arlington. It's very difficult to do mixed use under today's zoning regulations because the on-site parking, yard setbacks, and other dimensional requirements for both the residential use plus the business use must be met. This map shows all of the business-zoned land in Arlington today. As I said, Arlington's business tax base is about 4%. Some of the land zoned for business has been converted to apartments, reducing the amount of available land for business use. Business zoned land, as I said, can be converted to residential use by right and by special permit. This site, I'm sure a lot of you recognize, I hope you do. This is at the corner of Mill Street and Mass Ave. This is in the B2A, Major Business Zoning District. It was converted by right to townhouses in the 1990s. And this site is the former Brigham's Ice Cream headquarters, also in the B2A Major Business Zoning District. It was converted to residential apartments by special permit in 2010. Well-designed residential development is good, But a trend toward less business-zoned land makes it harder to recruit new business to Arlington and harder for existing businesses to grow, and continues the unbalanced burden on Arlington's residential taxpayers. An example is this map, which shows all of the land in Arlington that's zoned for B2A major business district. That's one of our business districts. It shows that district in red. It's not a lot. This map shows the impact of those two recent residential developments on this business-zoned district. We've effectively lost about 25% of the land in this particular business district that could have been available to recruit new business to Arlington. That land is likely to stay in residential use for decades. Can we do mixed use today? It's questionable, because you've got the parking requirements for both uses, combined with the setback requirements for both uses, plus the open space requirements for both the residential and the business uses. And there's also some question about whether one would have to be a primary use and one might have to be an accessory use, and how do you make that judgment call? It effectively renders this type of development, which I think you all recognize as being characteristic of our business districts, effectively outlawed. Mixed use, the definition that's proposed for this bylaw amendment, is very careful not to exclude desirable businesses found in what you might consider light industry today, such as alternative energy startups, or the innovation economy, or even gourmet food makers. An adjacent community, after investing a lot of public funds in a facelift in one of their business districts, had a couple companies approach them saying, we really want to be in this square. And they realized, to their disappointment, that they had zoned out light industry. So a high-end, growing audio speaker company couldn't locate in that square. They had to bend over backwards to try to go around their own recent zoning out of light industry. I don't think we want to do that. This bylaw amendment would be subject to a special permit and environmental design review. Environmental design review has 12 standards that have to be met and reviewed by the Arlington Redevelopment Board. I bring your attention specifically to landscape preservation, building and environment, open space, and the third from the bottom, heritage. These all would be imposed, as they are already in the zoning bylaw for environmental design review special permits. These would be imposed on mixed-use development proposals. The Redevelopment Board concluded that allowing mixed use does not need to come at the expense of any current use allowed in the bylaw. The proposed vote would not remove any rights currently available. The proposed vote adds an option not readily available today. The dimensional requirements do favor mixed use over conversion to a single use to create an incentive to keep business uses in business districts. The mixed-use dimensional requirements would be the same as those that are currently imposed on business use for minimum lot size, frontage requirements, front and side yard setbacks, and maximum lot coverage.
You have about a minute and a half left, Carol.
Thank you. The mixed-use density does create a higher floor area ratio. That's basically the ratio of the building volume to the land area on the lot. But that additional floor area ratio is controlled by the requirement to have on-site parking. It's also controlled, as I said, by the Environmental Design Review Special Permit, and it's only available when business is paired with residential development. The parking requirements would be 1 per dwelling unit, which is quite common today for multifamily developments, and would be 1 space per 750 square feet of business use. To give you a frame of reference for how much that is, 12 Medford Street is about 750 square feet. That's the building where there were the public art displays in the window over the winter. Other parking lot requirements would apply. The zoning bylaw currently says that for parking lots of 5 spaces or more, we have to have screening, fencing, and parking setbacks. So to wrap up, I want to review the 5 points are that this is intended to keep business uses in our business districts. Mixed use already exists in Arlington, as you can see here. It would be subject to special permit and environmental design review standards. These incentives are only for mixed use. And I know that the redevelopment board appreciates your consideration. I'd be happy to address questions.